morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio stations island-wide, Tel TV Plus, Channel 15, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunications, the Honorable Grisha Heilige Martin, to address you. Minister Heilige Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Honorable Prime Minister, members of the media, those listening and viewing St. Martin, good morning. October marks Breast Cancer Awareness, a time for us all to stay strong, stay aware, and continue uplifting each other. While it may sound like a cliche, prioritizing your health truly makes a difference. Regular checkups saves lives, so please, if you haven't already, get checked. Breast cancer doesn't wait, and neither should we. So together, let's stand in solidarity and support for one another and spread the message that early detection is key. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay hopeful. I have a few topics to bring forward, so let me start with the one that's trending right now, shipping. The whole shipping sector has been in the news lately. First, there were reports that CGMA and CMA, one of the world's leading ocean freight lines, which serves St. Martin, has rerouted its operation to Guadeloupe. I got the information just before my trip to Monaco at the head of the St. Martin delegation to a major conference, a major yachting conference, and decided to seize the opportunity to meet with representatives of the shipping company at their headquarters in Paris to discuss the latest development. The company took the decision to move its transshipment operations to Guadeloupe because our pier is not deep enough to accommodate the LNG-powered vessels it has to use in order to comply with the requirements of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. This decision will affect wholesalers like Super U in Marigot, but much more than those in the south, here in the south of the island, who do not import that much or very little from Europe. Our talks laid the foundation for future collaboration between government of St. Martin as bunkering and even possible joint venture investments that would improve the capabilities of our port and thus enhance its position as a transshipment point for the Northeastern Caribbean. The dock strike in the US. As the CMA-CGMA announcement was not enough, news broke out on Monday of a potential crippling strike by dock workers in the US. Knowing that when they sneeze over there, we are prone to get contract pneumonia right here. So we immediately started talks with several food wholesalers to find out how the strike could affect St. Martin. I started one time yesterday. The almost unanimous response was that we're okay from the supermarkets. We're okay for now. This was because, according to them, the U.S. ports from where they ship their containers are not involved in the strike. So they reported that they have stock that could last up to 2 to 3 weeks and up to 2 months, some up to 2 months. So we're fine. Remember that our supermarkets as well, they prepare for hurricane. So we're kind of in the safe zone there. They all prepared for the hurricane season, so there's ample food. So we're nothing to really be concerned about. While this may be good news for some time, though, we are closely monitoring the situation to see if any changes can be, if there's any changes, and be ready to take whatever mitigation measures may be necessary. So reports in the U.S. indicate that the strike by some 45,000 workers, primarily across major ports in the East Coast and Gulf, will have devastating consequences for the wider U.S. economy. So thankfully, our wholesalers import goods from the West Palm Beach, Jacksonville, and Miami also, and it bring in products from South America as well, and Europe and other places. So The Miami port is one of the smallest areas that they import from. However, this government is keeping a close eye on the developments in the U.S., and because of its effects of the strike, it may be felt we could maybe see it have an effect on us at a later time. So this is something that can happen overnight, but we must rise to the challenge. And the hurricane, the pandemic, and now the strike continues to highlight our vulnerability when it comes to importing food, particularly fresh fruits and vegetables. So a complete paradigm shift is needed where we focus on developing and maintaining a fully functioning agriculture sector. This is our only chance to ensure food sustainability. And we all have a role to play, whether it's in schools, whether it's at home, and businesses to make it into a reality. Against this backdrop, the Caribbean Shipping Association, the 54th association's 54th annual general meeting conference of an exhibition kicks off this weekend right here in St. Martin at our port. This conference will cover crucial topics to present to the present and future of the shipping in the Caribbean. I also anticipate that the ongoing strike at several major U.S. ports will inevitably become the topic of discussion, for sure. So this presents an ideal opportunity for those in the St. Martin shipping industry to explore ways to lobby and find strategies to mitigate the impact of this strike. So St. Martin is actually fortunate to be hosting this event this weekend, right at the time of the strike. Businesses operating unlawfully. I'm saddened to note that despite the best intentions of government, some businesses continue to operate without the required licenses, thus violating the laws of the land. This cannot be tolerated any longer. Government has been willing and remains willing to cooperate with businesses to ensure that they operate within the law. We have bent over backwards to invite few business owners that continue to defy our laws and regulate their situation. The ministry, the police, and the prosecutor office will be meeting to decide what actions to take to ensure all businesses comply with the laws. St. Martin cannot afford to continue to be labeled as the wild, wild west, because some people think they're above the law. Let me repeat again, while I definitely support legitimate business activities, all operations must comply with our laws and regulations. Public order and safety are paramount, and I will not hesitate to take the necessary enforcements or actions to ensure adherence to these principles. Last, I'd like to talk about the entry and departure card. You may have noticed that the government of St. Martin, in collaboration with Princess Juliana International Airport, is introducing an online embarkation and disembarkation card, the ED card, as a part of a newly designed border clearance process for immigration and border protection services. This initiative aims to enhance the traveler experience, provide a broader understanding of the visitor's demographic, and enable border authorities to work more efficiently and effectively. So visitors who complete their declaration via the website www.entry.sx will benefit from expediting process through the automated passport kiosks and border gates, e-gates. So although residents are not required to complete these forms, it is highly recommended as it can significantly speed up both the entry and the departure. So currently the system is in a test phase, allowing for evaluations and adjustments before it becomes mandatory. It is not mandatory as yet. A dedicated team, along with key stakeholders, will be part of the testing group to ensure the process meets all necessary standards and addresses any potential issues. So the collaborative efforts will shape the final implementation of the online ED card with the ultimate goal of providing smoother and more streamlined experience for the travelers. So no official date has been set for the ED card to become mandatory as yet. It is only now in its test phase. With that, I thank you, and I await any questions you may have.
Thank you, Minister Heilige Martin. We will allow Prime Minister to present, and then we will go over to the question and answer session. So at this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Marcelina, to address you. Prime Minister Marcelina, you have the floor.
Minister of Fiat, members of the media, and also the personnel of the CoM, the people of St. Martin, good morning. I'm pleased to update you first on my recent work visit to New York and Curacao, where we advanced with several key initiatives that actually impacts our nation, St. Martin. First of all, I had the privilege to attend the Summit of the Future, where global leaders gather to address critical global challenges such as, of course, our climate resiliency, governance, and sustainable development. In the United Nations, I had the opportunity to speak with a few leaders of, for example, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Cabo Verde. I spoke with the Prime Minister of Jamaica. I spoke with the Prime Minister on one-on-one base of Antigua. And of course, also I attended the art exhibition in which we had a photographer of St. Martin that has the option to exhibit his arts in the form of photography, Mr. Suriel. I had to open that session. And also I was a speaker at the UNESCO high-level event to honor the victims of slavery that I shared with the Prime Minister of Jamaica, and also the Prime Minister and the President, of Ghana. The most honorable that I could experience that day for Country St. Martin was that I was representing the kingdom on the platform of the General Assembly Hall, in which I was propagating the Pact of the Future that would have been endorsed and has been endorsed in the days that I was in New York attending the United Nations. I also had the opportunity to meet with the Minister of Trade of the Netherlands and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. The Minister of Trade was Mrs. Klever. I had an opportunity to sit and discuss with her. Also, I met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Veldkamp, and I also had the honor to sit and discuss with the ambassador representing us in the mission at New York, Mrs. Joke Brandt. After New York, I left New York and I went to Curacao for two reasons. I had there the shareholders meeting of the Seba Bank, in which the shareholders of Curacao and Seba and the Netherlands were represented. So we had our annual meeting of the Seba Bank Resources NV, of which you all know that St. Martin is a shareholder of. After that, I had a meeting also with the government of Curacao. I had a session with the Prime Minister and his advisors, Mr. Pisas, Mr. Gilmar Pisas, and we have discussed a few topics, actually 3 topics. We discussed the issues and the future of the Central Bank of Curacao and St. Martin. We discussed, of course, the ongoing discussion on seeking a solution for the ENIA dossier. That is 2. And 3, we have spoken about the more options and possibilities for the Win Air to land on Curacao. At this particular moment, the Win Air is landing 10 times a week in Curacao. And of course, we would like to have unlimited possibility to land in Curacao. At the other side, I offered him to make it a win-win also for us to bring passengers, tourists from other islands to Curacao too, realizing that we are broadening our destinations for the Win Air to make it a stronger company for the future for our country. And I offered him for us to start negotiations to bring passengers, tourists from St. Lucia, Antigua, and also from the Barbados. So he was very open and positive about my proposal in the hope that it's going to be a win-win for Curacao to get passengers from those destinations and also for us to increase our destinations to do business for Win Air. These were the topics on international level, let's call it that way. Further, before finalizing this chapter, I also received past Sunday the State Secretary of the Netherlands. He was actually on transit from the Netherlands to Statia and after that to Seba, and he will be coming back coming Thursday to St. Martin, and there we will have our necessary topics that we will sit and discuss with each other to see how we're going to benefit St. Martin and its people for the future. Another topic that I would like to touch base on is, of course, GEBE, where we're standing now with this GEBE and how we are going to move forward. At this particular moment, we are so far already that we realize that we can move forward with the crankshaft number 19, generator number 19. That means that we are now in the phase of closing up this generator number 19 for a GEBE. We realized also that the crankshaft issues of generator number 16 is of such dimension that we can move forward with reparation and we must not substitute it for a new crankshaft, so that is promising. Further, we had participated that we are receiving the 20 megawatt generators, the 20 generators of 20 feet each of them, and the planning was to receive one today, the 2nd of October, and further the 20 generators would arrive today. But this morning I had contact with the director of GEBE, Mr. Washington, and he informed me that there is some delay in arrival of these containers, but as he is estimating, it's a delay of days and not weeks or months, so that's okay. Secondly, the second container session that is arriving to St. Martin is 5 40-feet containers, and in these containers we have the transformers, the cabinets, the cables, the pipes, and the fittings. These are those that are going to arrive on the 7th of October. And the third session, it was in 3 sessions that they would arrive, is that on the 16th of October, the third batch is arriving. And in the third batch, we have the fuel tanks for the new 20 megawatt, 20 units generators. The good news in our planning, the bad news is that we have some day delays in the arrival of the first batch set that are compromises the 20 megawatt generators. The good that I was very worried for, but thank God unnecessarily worried for, was that the transshipment port is not the United States of America, but it's Jamaica, and that means that we can avoid the strike that is taking place in the harbors on the east coast of the United States. Further, the infrastructure necessary to accommodate those 20 megawatt containers, the infrastructure is almost there. The retaining walls are being finalized this week. The only part is that the mini cabinet office that they have to install there, that is the last phase that they have to finalize. But in generally, all the concrete beams are placed already. The retaining walls are placed already. The fencing is placed already. So in principle, GEBE is ready to accommodate the 20 megawatt 20 generators that we are expecting. Unfortunately, not today, but I think in a few days from now they will be here. And hopefully, still the idea is to see if we can commission those new generators in the first week of November, as we have always spoke about. These are, in general, the recent news that I can share with you of the last week that I have been partially abroad for St. Martin in my activities for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. We now move over to the question and answer session. The floor is open, and Bibi Haj Shah of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning. Good morning, Prime Minister. My first question is for you, and we'll stick on the topic of GEBE.
Yes.
Can you give us an update on the load shedding? And also, what is the status of the billing? Prime Minister, 3 or more years after the hack, there are people that are still receiving inaccurate bill, and some of them not even receiving bill. And if you can also address the issue of the fuel clause. We've heard a lot about a fuel clause, a lot of things that are being added to the fuel clause that has skyrocketed the electricity bill on St. Martin. Have you looked into this, and do you have a solution for it?
Yes, first, the load shedding that we are still experiencing, although in a less frequency than in the past. First, we had a load shedding that had to do, in general, that we felt, though, a peak moment of intense repetition of load shedding that had to do, and that we have explained already, that had to do with a desynchronizing of the frequency of the units, especially the generator ones with the national grid. That problem has been solved. And secondly, the load shedding that we are still experiencing has to do that we have, of course, just enough capacity to supply the island, the community. But the moment that we disconnect the generator for routine servicing and maintenance, we immediately experience the load shedding. That is also one of the reasons that I proposed to GEBE to see if we could not buy the SoEnergy session part of the new containers. That's the ones that we have already, the 10 megawatts. This deal we had in a rent agreement. SoEnergy is not so sensitive to transform that contract in a rent-to-own concept. But we are with CMEC that is now busy with the bringing in the 20 megawatt containers, and the CMEC is those sensitive. We are doing now a study to see, because it's an investment again to purchase 10 extra containers. We are now in the study to really see if we're going to take the decision to still order an additional 10 megawatt from CMEC, like we did already for the 10 that are coming, for the 20 megawatt that is coming in. So we're going to take, in the coming 2 to 3 weeks, a decision if we're going to disconnect from continuing discussion with So Energy to transform what we have here in rent-to-own and leave them go back with their containers and switch over to a definitive decision with CMAC for the 20 megawatt containerized generators. Secondly, realizing my concern for guarantee of stability for supply of energy for the community of St. Martin, we have, thank God, soon the treatment of the amended budget for 2024 for St. Martin. I have signed it yesterday, so it went to Parliament, so I expect any time for us to start in Parliament with the discussion of the amended version, that is for 2024. And I have already accommodated a loan for the purchasing of the 3 big units that has always been our fundamental problem for the supply of energy, being, for example, generator number 19, where if we look back in history, it all started with when this one disconnected from the grid. So once the amended budget of 2024, we're not even doing the 2025, I have the good hope that we are going to be even able to treat 2025 before calendar year change for County St. Martin. But I even accommodated, anticipating on my proactiveness for the energy for St. Martin. I already included the amount that I think it's approximately 42 million that I'm going to negotiate, in which I have discussed already with BZK for us to already have it approved in the budget of 2024. Once it's approved, I have the authority to start the negotiations that we started already, but now it's to take decision to order the 9 megawatt generator units, and that we spoke of in the past, that were the expensive ones that we need to definitively stabilize the grid and actually balance back with what we have failed with in the past. And parallel to that, of course, to continue or to progress in investment to develop renewable energy for County St. Martin, because that will be the future of the world. But as I said in the past already, you cannot correct deficiencies and insufficiencies and lack of decision of the past with renewable energy. You have to put back the place in stability on a short term with what you have been working with. And once you have that stable base, we're going to move forward and progressively shift the accent to renewable green energy. And that has our complete attention also for the future concerning sustainable energy supply for St. Martin. This whole fuel clause discussion that everybody is talking about has also to do with I explained that recently in Parliament. I gave a breakdown of this fuel clause. And it has to do, this fuel clause, with a lot of facets that at the end of the day builds up a fuel clause amount that you have on your bill. One of them is, for example, that the fuel farm is not a possession as such of a GEBE its own. So we are dependent of import of fuel. We are dependent on a fee that has to be paid to the harbor. We are dependent on a clause, a agreement for the bunkering actually of that fuel. There are so many facets that we as a government does not have a grip on, that actually are well determined and described in the fuel class formula. There's no discussion about it. But for the future, for the consumption of energy, we will have to take steps, for example, with accentuating renewable energy that will be less dependent on fuel. In the future, thinking about if it's time for us to start thinking on a fuel farm that will be in possession of our national utility company itself. And I think these things are essential discussions and questions that we have to ask ourselves to one day have more control as a government about the price and the sum of the fuel class that is added to the consumption of energy as such for the country. I realize that the fuel class is an exceptional high amount, but as I have broken down the formula in Parliament recently, you realize when you go very deep into it that the components that form the fuel class, very few of them has control of government. Fuel price internationally, oil price internationally, fee that we have to pay to third parties like the salt, for example, harbor fee. These are things that we have to comply with. But for the future, we have to take the right steps to get more hold of reducing the fuel class. And a significant shift will be alternative renewable energy, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Billing?
The billing, I have discussed this topic also with the management of GEBE. The information that I'm getting is that although the fact that we experience some contradictions and discussions in the billing of clients concerning consumption of energy, the information that I'm getting is that there is still a huger group that is not feeling contradiction anymore or confusion in the billing system. But of course, it is not 100% covered. GB is giving me the impression that above 90, and they dare to say 90-95% of the clientele is well controlled concerning systematic, correct billing of their consumption of energy. And I will have to follow as shareholder the information that I'm getting from the management level of what they tell me. On the other side, if we have the remaining 5%, and 5 out of 100 is complaining, it can still give the impression and perception that GB does not have his organization well organized. So although for 90-95% it's under control, you must have only one with a hard voice outside there, and then you get the impression that it's the majority of clients, which is not the case.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We now move on to Stephen Cerulean of PJ82 Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Prime Minister, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Prime Minister, you're also the formateur. Can you provide some information as to how the formation process has been coming along and whether or not you will be presenting the report as is requested by the governor in a timely manner?
Yes, very good. As you know, I have been requested to become formateur of the new government of St. Martin. And as you know too, an intention declaration has been signed already between the coalition partners. Secondly, a governing accord also has been signed by the coalition partners. The third one that will be signed soon is the governing program. I will come back on that, why we did not sign it yet. Concerning the candidates for the different political parties forming part of the coalition, the candidates has been identified already. As a formateur, I have collected all the necessary documents necessary to submit to de VDSM, de Veiligheidsdienst Sint Maarten, to the Procureur-Generaal, the Attorney General, and also to the Governor. So far already that these documents has been submitted already to these three entities. So the formation in time span now is not in my hands anymore, and that was also the last time the case that they thought that the formateur was not efficient enough. The formateur is on schedule. The documents of all identified candidate ministers are submitted to the VDSM, to the Attorney General, and to the Governor. And now it's in the hands of those entities to give me feedback on their end conclusion of their screenings process for me to move forward with presenting my, my mission to form a government. Of course, intermittent, I'm making my phone calls also, from please, let's move forward as soon as possible to install a government. And until now, I get the information that they're not expecting anything that is going to hamper a formation on a short term. That is the impression that I'm getting by my phone calls and contacts that I have with the entities.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I would now like to invite Emma Lee of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
And Minister Tiat. My question is for you, Prime Minister.
Yeah.
GB in its public session guaranteed that the increased costs related to the rental of the generators and the higher cost for the diesel fuel would not be passed on to consumers. You've confirmed that in your meeting in Parliament. So my question to you is, it's very likely that it will take a minimum of 2 years before the new generators are ordered and in place, so that this situation may last for 2 years. Given that this might create a financial hardship for GB, how will you ensure that the commitment is honored without bankrupting GB?
By giving the people of St. Maarten by day one the trust of a government. They have to trust their government. The problem is that I have said it many times already, that GB is going to absorb the costs. Okay. So actually we should be happy, right? And now that we are going to tell the people that GB is going to absorb the costs, now we're going to question that. Is it so that, but I'm asking myself in this community, what do we want now? We want some relief for the people. The government is putting GB under pressure, although the financial challenges of the company, and we are doing what we have to do for the clients not to suffer. And now we are at that stage, and now we're going to ask ourselves, but how serious is this commitment now? So imagine if we don't do it, that means that electricity is going to become more expensive, and that would not even be good for the people of St. Maarten. So at a certain moment, if we go to the right, it's wrong. If we go to the left, it's wrong. But in this case, we chose for the people, realizing the challenges that they're going through in this community, worldwide actually, but in St. Maarten specifically. And we decided that GB will have to cover for the costs of this in-between solution that we're in to solve actually definitively the issues of the energy crisis for country St. Maarten. I have sat with the GB Supervisory Board and management. I told them that we as government are having our serious concerns about the pricing and the getting more expensive of energy due to the measures that we had to take by purchasing containers, using diesel that is quite expensive, etc. We got a commitment from them that we are going to absorb the cost through GB. And if that is the case, let's as a people be grateful and happy that that is happening. And let's trust on the fact that the decision has remained calculated on the financial position of GB, that they can carry this for the coming 3 years.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Prime Minister, TIAT Minister, colleagues. Prime Minister, one of the ways in which people can trust the government is when government honors its promises made, including those made during the campaign period. One of the things that you did say a few days or weeks before the election is that you were looking into providing relief to consumers related to the whole GEBE saga. I noted that you also mentioned this in Parliament, so I would like to know if you can give us an indication as to how soon a decision can be made as to what form of relief the people will be getting. Also, Prime Minister, you visited the St. Martin Medical Center recently, and you issued
Judy, unfortunately, that was your one question for this
but
round, and
everyone asked two
I will
questions.
allow Prime Minister to answer that. Prime Minister?
Judith, your question was the relief
Exactly.
for the people of St. Martin, right? The fact that that GB is going to absorb the costs, is that not a great achievement for the people? I think that's a great one for the people, that we are under not ideal circumstances, dealing with a crisis of energy. And I think the fact that I negotiated with GB, that we took the decision that we are not going to increase the costs by absorbing the costs, although taking measures to control a little the national crisis for the country. I think that is a great achievement for relief for the people, because we could have shifted it to the people too, we didn't. So we are realizing that that is, for example, already a relief for the people. And you have to understand that we are governing this country under very critical and crucial moments, partially national issues that we have, but also under international tension of less prosperity for all countries. I have been in a United Nations. If you follow the cry of the SIDS countries, small development states, you realize that they are coping with enormous problems, that even my country that has its problems, if I listen to others, what for challenges that they are encountering, I choose for my own problems when I come home back, although I have very serious problems. So what St. Martin is experiencing is not only an isolated challenge in the world, it's a shared problem that we all are suffering from in this country. And we just have to commit as governments on local level to make sure that we control our expenses and make sure that we take wise decisions for the future and for the sustainability of our nation, realizing that we have a small amount of people that has to pay for everything in this country for us to survive surrounded by the sea. Yes?
So just to be clear, the absorbing of the cost, that is the relief.
It's going to be dealt with GEBE. So the people of St. Martin are not going to be shareholders or responsible for extra payment for the extra costs for the intervention that we're doing now by purchasing new containers, renting them, buying them, using more expensive fuel for the coming 2 years, as has been done, because until we have the big generators installed, it's going to be 2 years from now. You have to realize it too. And that is not because it's St. Martin is going to take 2 years. The procurement, the whole process is going to take 2 years before these 3 big units are completely commissioned and operational. So it's going to take us 2 years, and that's why Mr. Lee was a little concerned. What I understand from can GB carry this for 2 years? And the answer is GB must carry this for the coming 2 years.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Unfortunately, I allowed it. Thank you, Judy. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
And thank you. Good morning, Prime Minister, Minister of TIAT. One follow-up question. Could you tell what the interest is on the 42 million loan that you negotiated? And my question is, the far-right government in the Netherlands has announced cuts in the funding for St. Martin, like, for instance, for the Coast Guard, millions less. On the other hand, seeing the port strikes in the United States, that will likely drive up food prices, and St. Martin losing its hub role for food imports will likely drive prices in the supermarkets. And there's still the GB bills that people have to pay. What are the plans of the government, seeing the cuts and the higher prices, to make the cost of living affordable on the island, or at least prevent that that the cost of living rises?
There are two questions in one. The first one is the extreme right government, you told me, and the impact of border control, Coast Guard, that's one. Okay. And then the second one was the pricing, of which I will leave for the Minister of Tiet. The first one, there is a perception and a reality that we have a right-oriented government in the Netherlands. That does not mean that a right-oriented government cannot actually please the wishes of the countries in the kingdom. And I'm going to, for example, tell you, I had a meeting with 2 representatives of this new government, actually 4. I had a meeting with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Schoof. I had a meeting with the State Secretary, Mr. Zalt-Sabo. I had a meeting with Mrs. Klever from Trade, and I had a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Veldkamp. Although the perception outside there is that perhaps maybe it's going to be difficult, my personal feeling and opinion after sitting with these persons, they were very realistic in approach towards the topics that I have discussed with them. For example, your concern about border control. It's most of the time not the vision of the government of the Netherlands that determines the future of your country. It's the vision of your government of your country that determines the vision and future of your country. What I want to say with that is there is a big concern for border control for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The State Secretary of Defense recently, before I left, visited me in my office, and he told me a concern of the Netherlands is border control for the kingdom. If you look good and critical to the budget of the kingdom, you see that there is an increase in the amount that is going to be distributed for consumption and use to organize border control for the kingdom. So if you read that good and you have the Secretary General of Defense telling you that border control is a problem, that you see that the Prime Minister is talking about border control, my task is to tell them border control is indeed a problem for the kingdom. But the kingdom is not the Netherlands. The kingdom are the countries, overseas territories also belonging to the kingdom. So I accentuated to him that I would like to maintain the same formula that they use in the Netherlands for enforcing of border control. I want that same inclusive, uniform approach for the border control for the overseas territories of the kingdom. We have to realize that I cannot assume the responsibility for border control for St. Martin while I'm part of the concept of the kingdom and there is a formula for border control for the kingdom. So either I'm going to step back and hear that they have some challenges with the border control, or I'm going to step up the plate and tell them, I realize that too. I cannot guarantee border control for the kingdom, but I can contribute my share part by doing what I have to do with a general formula of border control for the kingdom. But that means that the finance has to come from the same resources as those for the Netherlands. And they understood that very good. And I think that's the way you have to do it. You had some issues about the prices, and we have here the Minister of Economy sitting next to me. Maybe she can give some answer to that. Pardon? Pardon? Yes. Yes. The Minister is attending me that I skipped an answer for you. The interest on the loan. I approached Mr. Sabot during the hype of the energy crisis and told him, I have a big challenge in my country with energy. And I told him, the only way I'm going to get out of this is to purchase and have a financing for the purchasing of the 3 big generators next to the ones that we do on our own force. But we do not have the finance to purchase. Let's say if each generator costs 14 million, we do not have 42 million to purchase them. In 24 hours, he sent me a letter and he confirmed to me that he is okay with my proposal. We have to sit and discuss the terms for the loan. I could not sit and negotiate the terms of the loan and agree with him because my amended budget was not approved in Parliament, so I cannot entertain him with the details of the loan, not knowing if my amended budget, in which this budget amount of 42 million was placed, will be approved by. But now that it's going to be, hopefully, the moment it's signed, I have my letter ready to tell him, let's go and sit now and negotiate the terms for this loan. That is the way you have to do it. You cannot sit and entertain, not even realizing if it's going to be approved and if you have the political will to support your vision for financing of the purchasing of the containers, of the generators.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now, with a little under 7 minutes remaining, I would like to invite the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Minister Grisha Heilige Martin, and Bibi Hatsha, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning, Minister. I'd like to ask you for a status update. One being, what are you doing exactly to drive some foot traffic to the new location where the marketplace vendors are now located? And can you also give us an update on Starlink? Do you have an agreement?
I can answer one because I don't have the other one as yet. But the foot traffic, we are busy right now talking to the tour operators, the tour buses, to see if they can, because what happens when you book a tour, you already see the entire schedule of where the tour is. They would have to make a change in their tour to make sure that they can make sure that incorporate the stop by the market vending place for at least half an hour to do the shopping. So we're busy working with some tour operators, the tour buses, to see if we can get them to do that. We've already spoken to the taxi associations. They too said that they will be supporting us. They even came to the opening of the event and assured them verbally that anytime that they have guests, they'll drop them off for shopping. The Starlink part, I cannot answer that as yet. I would have to maybe follow up with BTP and get an update.
Thank you, Minister. Stephen Cerulean, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning to you, Minister. The establishing of the SBA, St. Martin Tourist Authority. STA.
Yes.
Can you provide a status update as to how far you are with this?
Administratively, it's taking a bit, we had an advice ready, but now internally, we are busy now making amendments to the advice before it can be presented to CoM. We were about to present it about 2 weeks ago, but right now there's some minor things legally that we need to shift around before we could present it to CoM for CoM to approve it so that it can start. So it could have been initiated 2 weeks ago, but administratively, we hit a little snag.
Thank you, Minister. Emily?
So my question is for the Prime Minister,
Okay,
no?
so let us allow Minister Heilige Martin, and then we will try to get back to that question.
Okay.
Yes? Judy Fitzpatrick?
Yes, very good morning. Minister, on the issue of what's happening with the ports and so forth, is there any efforts being made to prevent price gouging just in the event that, things don't go the way it should? Thank
Very
you.
good question. That's one of the main concerns we had yesterday when speaking to the major supermarkets. I didn't mention before which supermarkets I spoke to. I spoke to Costco, Carrefour, Divico, Prime, and one more. I think I spoke, yeah, and Sunny Foods. And that was actually our main, because what can happen, there can be some reshuffling or rerouting of goods. And depending on what those goods are, we have told them that as soon as if rerouting could mean more expense, could be expensive. Maybe the shipping expenses could be passed on to the price. So we asked each and every one of them to please inform us if there's an uptick in price, so that Economic Affairs is aware of it and that it's not passed on, and that some of the supermarkets won't feel the need that, oh, I raised it because all these prices came up. No, it's specifically this particular product. So we are really, really and truly paying close attention to that. Very important. Food already as it is expensive. So that's one of the main things that we're looking at. That's why we met with all of them. Another stakeholder I want to meet with is all the, I haven't had time yet, but I'm going to try sometime today, is to meet with the shipping companies as well to see what effects they have on that and what they're doing to mitigate this. So hopefully I'll have an update on that as well.
Thank you,
Jacqueline?
Minister. Jacqueline?
Minister, the former Minister of Romy, on his last day in office, 2nd of May, issued a permit for a beach bar next to Character Beach Bar, and that was picked up a week later. Did you give a permit for beach activities, renting of chairs, water sports activities?
Personally, not that I can recall, but that's something I can look into and internally and see if that was done. But personally, no, I have not. Yes. Can I answer the question on, I would love to answer that question that you posed to the Prime Minister, to find a way to decrease food pricing. It's a multifaceted approach, and I'm actually trying to approach it in many ways. And you heard me already talk about agriculture being important to become more self-sufficient. I spoke to you guys actually informally about that. That's important for me. But also, we are looking at using, I hope I can remember the name of the software, Dasukura, I forgot the name of it, but this software is a digital software that anytime now we get the receipts in, we can digitally get it in, and then we can finally see the prices that are coming in digitally, because right now every receipt is being put in manually. So maybe digitizing all the foods that are coming in as well can help us also mitigate pricing. I'm trying to revisit the basket of goods, see if is it really something we want to continue with, or we want to change it up, things like that. And also maybe also now finding ways to structurally see internally what can we grow and what can we protect and make cheaper, or maybe strengthen the basket of goods. Different ways to drop food prices. But I understand, I feel it myself, believe it or not. I have to shop in 3 or 4 different supermarkets, and to get the best of the best prices. I'm not going to mention where I go, but because I don't want to give a shameless plug, but I know how it feels, how expensive things are. So that is something I feel every day myself personally. So I'm going to make sure, find a way to bring down the prices. We all have to eat, but not at the expense of others, if you understand what I mean. Yes? Good.
Thank you,
That's
Minister Heilige Martin. That brings us to the end of your question and answer session. Prime Minister Marcelina, I would like to re-invite you for Mr. Emily's question, please.
Again, thank you. The Minister of VSA was in Parliament recently making a presentation about the general health insurance or national health insurance.
Yep.
After that parliamentary session, I contacted many stakeholders who say they've never seen the current draft of the legislation. So is the current Council of Ministers, have you reviewed the legislation, and are you in favor of the draft as it is now?
Minister Lee, you're talking, of course, about the general health insurance. That is in the draft form. That is actually the concept of the world of a universal health insurance. That's general, has to be universal. We have a challenge in this country, and people have to understand it. Whatever formula you're going to introduce for the sustainable financial model for healthcare of St. Martin, You are not going to solve that problem if your base amount of people contributing premiums are not huge and large enough. We have in this country, a lot of people say 40,000 people. I think it's more than that. Let's make it 60,000. You have 15,000 people are children. 15,000 people are elderly. 15,000 people are undocumented. That means 15,000 people are working. You have to present me a formula in which 15,000 people, working class, is going to pay to make a sustainable financial system to keep a healthcare going for 60,000 people. I'm not an economist, I'm just a surgeon, as you know. I am not getting through with that formula, and we have to be honest with that. I'm repeating it. Imagine it's 60,000. 15,000 are children. 15,000 are elderly. 15,000 are undocumented. And 15,000 are paying premium for 60,000. Imagine now, what they did is the 15,000 persons, what they did is enhance that group and say, okay, let's increase the year amount, those that are owing more, let's try to get them. You know how much that may be? Maybe 3,000 people. So we're going now from the 12,000, make it a general health insurance, a universal health insurance, and we're going to bring it from 13,000 to 15,000. Are we still able with 15,000 people to pay for the 60,000? And everybody is focusing on that formula as if that formula is going to solve the general health care of St. Martin. We have to work on a solution, and the universal health approach is, of course, an attempt to mitigate the excessive expenses that we have in this. We have to do something, but that we're going to solve it, that's another question. I think personally we have to enhance it. I did not discuss it yet, but I dare to say it here. We have to increase the amount of people contributing to premiums. And a way to do it, I dare to say it, it's time now for us to be realistic with sustainability of our country. Isn't it an idea to, for example, increase the amount of premium contributors by approaching Aruba and Curacao and say, let's do it together and make one asset fee? Or approach the kingdom and say, let's make it an associate with the 4 countries in the kingdom. And that whole discussion is over about the limited, challenging contribution of healthcare for everybody in St. Martin. We have to step out of the concept idea that as an island we can handle all the demanded necessities for a community to be sustainable. I showed you the figures of this example of 15,000. It's not going to work. And with these 15,000 people, by the way, we have to have a police unit, we have to have a hospital, we have to have a harbor, we have to pay for the airport. It's only 15,000 people at the end of the day that contributes for the big scale. So we have to step out of our proud and go over to sustainability and vision for sustainability and increase of prosperity. And that means that I dare to say that we have to think out of the box now to increase the amount of people contributing to premiums for us to have a sustainable financial system. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
That means the current version we're not in agreement with?
Pardon?
Does that mean that the current version you're not in agreement with?
No. I didn't say no. I just said we have to do something as long as we don't have a bigger out-of-the-box solution. But we have to do something now to mitigate the extreme challenges and deficits that we have in our healthcare. So we will have to work with a universal concept until we have a better solution.
Thank you, Prime Minister Marcelina. Minister Heilige Martin.
Yes. Quickly, just to answer Emile and Jacqueline. Emile, we haven't received it as yet. It's still, I think, with the Council of Advice. So I haven't received the legislation as yet.
No. It's not so far yet.
Yes. So to answer that question. And to answer your question, we confirm, the department confirmed we haven't received any request for beach chairs next to character, so it was never issued.
If that request comes, will you give it?
That's a good question. When that time comes, I'll let you know. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Heilige Martin. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the Live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Tel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Roleika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.